Okay, folks, welcome to Dynasty Saturday Night 5. We are live here on a Saturday night to talk Dynasty Fantasy Football. Sorry for the delay, a little technical difficulties. The technology being my brain that dozed off a little bit longer than I intended. Please subscribe, rate, and review if you're on the audio feed. If you're here watching us on YouTube, either now or later, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave some comments, etc., etc. I'm Brian Ford here with my co-host, as usual, Josh Walker. Josh, how you doing?
Doing great. I also took a nap, so there should be no excuses for us having any mistakes or mispronouncing names, or we should be well rested, right?
I will
the
say,
opposite.
I will say the opposite. Yes, that we're groggy and foggy, and we're just getting started, and so don't expect much from us at all. Actually,
that sounds like me in Dynasty.
So the logo contest. We got one person who was interested, and they didn't get back to me. And I heard from two other folks who do graphic work, and one of them I know like a long time for fantasy football. Last few years we're in like 9 dynasty leagues together, and the sentiment that they expressed to me was like, you should pay people for this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, and I don't necessarily disagree with them, right? I mean, so I don't know. Like, I think maybe we should pull it, and figure something else out with this, because, I mean, like, we're not just breaking a whole lot of hearts because the guy who was interested didn't send it in yet, and I don't know. Like, I don't like unpaid labor myself. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think given both of our stances on that, it'd be a tad hypocritical to not have that stance. So I'm fine with that. Maybe we could pitch in a few bucks ourselves to do it, because I'm down. I'm down if it's good and I like it, So
okay,
maybe we should do that.
All right. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, Dynasty Saturday Night 5 is a show where we talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football using lists of 5 simply as the vehicle to do it, to chop it up. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about sort of like where we're at with our current rankings. NFL draft is over, kind of first wave of rookie drafts is winding down, and we had to, make our dynasty rankings and tiers and publish them on goingfor2.com and that sort of thing, with the rookies included now with the vets. And so we took a look and we said, there's some interesting disparities, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Jamie giving us way too much praise. Best Dynasty Show live on YouTube. We just told you that, like, we both just woke up from a nap, so don't expect much tonight. But we'll see. So just before we get started with the lists, when it comes to rankings, I don't know that I've come up with a really great way to do them yet. I've been at it for a few years, and it's not like the order in which I take them in a startup draft. It's not like the order in which I think their value is in the trade market, right? Like, it's a mix of things, right? Like current production, expected production, current value, expected value, talent, situation, right? That sort of thing. I don't know that I've come up with like a really exact formula for it, but I think I'm much better than I was a while back. What goes into your process when you're thinking about rankings?
This is actually this will going into my second year. This last year was my first year actually doing rankings for football. I'd made my own in a spreadsheet for baseball before. And so I'm trying this year because I'm doing a lot of startups. So I am doing mine not 100% on how I would draft these people in a dynasty startup draft, but that is probably about 50% of what I put into it. Mm-hmm. It helps me also now that I've gotten more experience with dynasty, it helps me stay aligned to how I really feel and not get caught up in drafts, trying to do different things. But it's mostly that. Some of it is emotion too. There are just some players I just refuse to like, and I don't want them. I've talked about a few here. So, I mean, I think we'd be lying if some emotion didn't go into it too. But yeah, it's a lot of how I take them, also future value. And this one a lot was guessing how things would go with new players and spots, new teams, new coaches. So
Right. Yeah, for
learning
sure.
it too. So
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime you're putting rookies in or thinking about the dudes who are affected by those rookies, it's yeah. All
it's a lot of
right.
conjecture, really, right now at least.
Well, I mean, especially for you and I want to speak for you, but like I don't sit down and do like cold projections for every single player and team, and that's just not like I just don't have the time or really even the desire for that. It's not really how my brain like does it, but Jamie here saying that he does his rankings alphabetically, which, hey, whatever works, right? Um, I have a fun story about that, but before we spiral into anything that's completely unwatchable, today's show is brought to you by Underdog. Underdog Fantasy's industry leader, best ball tournaments, private leagues, pick'ems, every major sport, not just football. Scratch that itch. Get involved in best ball season, right? They got best ball mania going on. I broke down and joined a best ball mania league. I kind of don't really know what I'm doing, but just having fun anyway. Well, we are an affiliate, so if you are a new account on Underdog, when you make your first deposit and use the promo code GF2, they will match your deposit up to $100. So you deposit 100, you got 200 now to play with. So if you're watching here on the video, because we're fancy, you can scan that QR code here that we have on the screen. Otherwise, go to goingfor2.com or go to underdog.com or the Underdog app and use the promo code GF2. Get a deposit match of up to $100. Start playing, maybe even start winning. All right, time to get into me telling Josh why he's completely wrong about rankings. And so I spent a lot of time on a lot of stuff with this show sheet, and then like I left the jazziest stuff for last, which means like I didn't really do the jazziest stuff all that jazzy. So how about that? How about that for jazzy? You like that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So first person we're going to talk about is DJ Moore. So the number that you see there in brackets is sort of the average from everything, all the rankings and ADP I pulled. Wide receiver, right about 22. Josh has him at 20, and I have him at 29. Josh has him between Pittman and Hollywood. I have him between Dotson and TMC. Josh, this is one that you wanted to talk about. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah. So honestly, I've never been that high on DJ Moore, but most of that was with his quarterback play, and a lot of this is also, which we'll talk about another one later on. I think the Bears' offense in general is just going to be a lot better than it was last year. I see Justin Fields kind of making a jump like Jalen Hurts did, maybe not to that extent, but improving his passing, improving his decisions, and just being more accurate like he was in college, and we know he can be. And honestly, I think he could be the Fields of Stephon Diggs. Like, he could be what Stephon Diggs is for Josh Allen, but for Justin Fields. He's shown throughout his career he's threatened 1,200 yards every year. He gets a lot of targets, and I think he's going to be the main guy that Justin Fields looks for. And given his downfield threat with Claypool, Justin Fields' big arm, I just think he's going to have a career year. And he finally broke the 4-touchdown curse. So I don't know what else there is really holding him back. He's still pretty young, too. So.
Yeah. For me, I don't necessarily disagree that this is like the best quarterback he's had or that like, he's the best receiver, Fields has had. I mean, the passing volume, right? They've got to increase the passing volume to a certain extent, and while also incorporating Darnell Mooney back into the offense. And that how big does that jump in volume have to be for DJ Moore to really be what people think he is or what we've wanted him to be this whole time? I don't know. I'm just kind of like over him. It's just kind of like, okay, well, he's DJ Moore. He's, a middling wide receiver too, and he always will be. And, we kind of know what he is. And I just don't see it, the spike in volume being there enough to really sustain him to be all that good. And as anything with rankings too, it's also about like, who are you going to put him above and who are you going to put him below, and I just have other guys that I'd rather put above him, and like I've got Dotson above him, I've got Judy above him, I've got Deontay Johnson above him, I've got Jordan Addison above him, guys that a number of people have below him. So, that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I kind of point to Drake London last year. The Falcons were terribly low, like pass efficiency and how much they passed the ball. Didn't have good quarterbacks, but Drake London still had a pretty good year, especially for a rookie. So I think DJ Moore can still, if he's the guy that gets, 30% of the targets or whatever, I think he still has a chance, even without a huge spike in the passing volume.
Okay. All right. I mean, I love Fields and I want to see it, so
yeah.
And I'll adjust, of course, if I'm wrong. All right. The one that I want to talk about is 2022 rookie running backs. If you were in the late first or early second, a lot of folks were spending a pick on James Cook or Rachaad White. And I am below basically everybody on these guys. You can see the averages there. James Cook right around RB 29 and Rachaad White right around RB 21, 22. I've got Cook at 36 between A-Chain and Connor, whereas Josh has him at 25 between Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones. For me, with Cook, I was never really big on him coming out of college. He did flash okay, last year. I just don't see really any reason that he makes that big a jump into solid RB2 territory. I think the offense, while they say they want to run more, they did bring in a hammer, Damian Harris. They did draft Dalton Kincaid to beef up the intermediate pass game. I just they drafted James Cook for a role that they don't even really use. They don't even throw to the running backs really all that much. I've always thought he's been overrated, and there's just a number of guys I'd like above him. Rachaad White has been I have him at 31. You have him at 21. I have him between Kendre and B-Rob. You have him between Kamara and Dalvin. I have always been a sell on Rachaad White since Lenny Fournette got cut, right? One of the reasons I was a sell on him is because people thought he was a buy, right? I just thought he was going to be overvalued because Fournette vacated. Didn't like him all that much coming out of college. Like my RB 5 or 6, I think, in that class. Had a very meh 2022. Was not as efficient as even Lenny was that year. Did catch 50 passes, and you like that, but not many touchdowns. You've got a putrid offense probably, with Baker Mayfield at quarterback and, a possibly rebuilding team. I just do not like Rachaad White. And, when I see that I'm this, this well below the market on him, that therefore he becomes a sell for me. When I think, a player is overvalued, he becomes a sell for me. Right, like KTC has him at 22, right? Fantasy Calc at 21, Dynasty Trade Calculator at 18, Fantasy Pros at 19, Football Guys at 23, right? DLF ADP is 20, Bulletproof ADP is 20, and here I am at 31. That tells me, it's just a guy that I want to move off of, that people like a whole lot better than I do, and especially at the running back position, give me a plus on a guy who I have ranked higher that somebody else has ranked lower, such as, let's see here. So I have him in a tier of 29 to 37. So, I bet I could get a plus on top of Khalil Herbert, for some people, Cam Akers, For some people, Dalvin Cook. Um, and for some people, Damian Pierce. Definitely for people, Charb and Tank Bigsby would give me a plus on top of those. Those are all guys that I have ahead of Rachaad White at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think having Sharp above it, which I figured we might talk about later, if not a whole other episode. He hasn't even played a slap. I don't know if I could jump that far ahead. I might be a little high on Rachaad White, but I also don't think the passing volume is going to drop as much as people think now that Tom Brady's gone. I mean, their main weapons are Rachaad White, one of the best receiving backs coming out of college, one of the better, not best. Then you got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, you'd be kind of silly not to get it to your weapons. I think that's going to be a lot of passing, hopefully a lot of dump offs, and I think he's going to get a lot more carries between the tackles. And while some metrics don't point to him being as good in it, I think the sheer volume of it and given his ability to receive is good enough for me to get him over some of these older backs which I used to draft more last year, but I kind of shifted. I've kind of stopped drafting older backs and tried to get some younger ones.
Well, speaking of older backs, one thing I forgot to mention is people think he's just automatically going to be like a 1A there. He's not built for it. He's not good enough for it. And by the way, they could still re-sign Lenny. They have Tucker as a UDFA. Dalvin Cook could go there. Zeke could go there, right? Like, there's just I don't know. I cannot get excited about Rachaad White. There's somebody in the Dynasty community who's more well known than I am, and we were talking a little bit on YouTube comments, and he thinks Rachaad White is essentially discount Tony Pollard and is a big buy, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, I could see it going either way, but I'm going to take the chance that it does, and try and draft him a lot more, which I have. Yeah, James Cook. I think James Cook is just really good. I wasn't as high in college, but I was actually really impressed with him last year. 5.7 yards per carry behind a not great offensive line, and he's still a really good receiving back. And I do think they'll run it more, and I think Josh Allen will run it less. And I think, at least in my head, and I could be wrong on this, instead of running, I think the easiest thing to do instead of take a sack is just dump it off to your running back. So I'm hoping he'll get a lot more targets this year without Josh Allen running as much. If they stick to that, they might not, like you said, they might just keep doing what they're doing, and I'll look stupid again holding the Bills running back.
If I were to pick one where I believe maybe I'm too low on, I think I would choose Cook over White, even though I have White ranked a few spots above. But of course, that means I'm too low on Cook.
No, and one more comment on Rachaad White. I think the Bucs will either re-sign Winnie or sign Zeke. And I still don't care because those guys have shown they can't really do that much right now. So I think Rachaad White will still get plenty of chances. It might be better for him, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know that they can do much, but I think it certainly caps the ceiling of people thinking he's like this 1A. Like he said, you can draft anybody you want, draft Bijan, I'll be fine. Change his uniform number to 1. Like, okay, fine. Maybe he's like super motivated and I'm going to be proven wrong. We'll see about that.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
So the next one up that we're going to talk about is backup quarterbacks. I know this isn't like the sexiest thing to talk about, right? But one thing that we noticed was that we're quite different on backup quarterbacks Jacoby Brissett and Taylor Heineke. Interestingly enough, Brissett plays for Washington now, and Heineke used to play for Washington. I have Brissett at 43. At 36 between Levis and Heineke. I have Heineke 37 between Brissett and Jameis. You have Brissett at 43 between Trubisky and Heineke at 44 between Brissett and Wentz. This is one that you picked that you wanted to talk about. Tell me why I'm too high on these backup quarterbacks.
Well, it's mainly two things. It's my thought process of people ahead of him. And also, I'm just higher on Sam Howell and even Desmond Ridder this year. The clips I've seen, I know it's early, they're still in shorts and whatnot, but he looks a lot better throwing the ball. He looks more accurate throwing on the run, and it looks like he beefed up a little bit too. So I'm a little bit higher on them than most. I don't see them losing their playing time without an injury. So I did bake that into it with some of the guys I have ahead of them. I think have a chance of the person ahead of them just not being as good or have a lot more injury history. So it's a little bit of that. I'm higher on the original quarterbacks, and I think it'll take injury. So I'm going to look and see who I have ahead. So ahead of Brissett, Trubisky. I think Trubisky has a better chance of playing just because I'm not as high on Kenny Pickett. Mike White, 2 has concussions. Davis Mills, he's got a rookie quarterback. He's not great. He was the one I thought about moving down. Jameis Winston, I think is just better than both of them. Tyler Huntley is one of the better handcuffs, and then Darnold. So it's really just the people above them, I think, will either play more or have a better chance of getting into games without an injury. So I try not to bake injuries too much, or like trying to predict it like that. So.
Yeah, we're not too far apart on Howell and Ritter. Like you only have Howell 3 spots above me, and Ritter only 1 spot above me. But I guess my thing is I don't necessarily have as much confidence in their grasp on the job, right? And that's why I have their backups elevated, right?
Yeah.
To me, these backups are some of the best backups in football. And Jacoby Brissett, mobile for his age, and certainly mobile for other quarterbacks his age, did a commendable job. Before Watson was able to play last year, has always been reliable, really, wherever he is, to be a competent person who isn't necessarily going to lose you games. And I still have question marks about Ritter and Howell. Not that I, am out on them completely. I've got some shares of each. Probably a little more optimistic about Ritter, but I think I see a world in which, Heineke's the starter by week 6, and there's also a non-zero chance that Brissett's the starter by week 6 there. So I'm going to lump them in with other quarterbacks who kind of may have a shot at playing, in a tier with guys like, Jameis Winston or Davis Mills and Tyler Huntley. I just have them like above those guys, and you have them below those guys. Yeah.
No, it seems to be just slightly different philosophy of how going about it. Because I'm not that impressed with Brissett. I think, like Jamie said in the comments, he's better for real life than fantasy, and I do my rankings for fantasy more so than who's a real life player. And honestly, I've seen enough from Heineke to where I'm not super impressed anymore. I don't think like you said, he's a good backup, but that's literally it. So.
Jamie brings up a fair point, right? Like Brissett being better for real life than fantasy, of averaging 11.6 per game. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Let's see. Interestingly enough, with these guys, I looked and the football guys' rankings have him all the way down at Brissett all the way down at 50, and they have him between Bailey Zappi and Skylar Thompson. So definitely low.
They got the third string quarterback. Technically, is Skylar Thompson still with the Dolphins?
Yeah.
So they have a third string quarterback above him then.
Well, right. He's below Zappi and above Thompson. So.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I got you.
Yeah, and
still,
and with Heineke on Dynasty Trade Calculator, he's the 54th ranked quarterback between Teddy B and Cooper Rush. So, maybe you're right. Maybe I am a little too optimistic about the chances for these guys to grab playing time at some point in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, I would hate having McLaurin, Dotson, or Curtis Samuel if Brissett was a quarterback, if I'm being honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, okay, so the 2022 quarterbacks, right? Like, Howell, for me, he was kind of tough. I think he was like my quarterback 2 or 3. And then Ritter was like my 4 or 5. I just was never a big Ritter believer. I'll cop to that Ritter looked pretty good, in the small sample size, and certainly better than Mariota. And there's reasons for optimism for both him and his weapons around him. But maybe it's that. Maybe that I was just never really all that impressed with them as prospects, nor have we seen much out of Howell besides a game or two?
Yeah.
And the 2022 quarterback class was so bleh anyway. Maybe that's coloring my my analysis. What do you think about that? Am I just too just left hangover from the 2022 rookie class?
Yeah, once you said that, it made a lot of sense. Because I mean, Ritter, I was expecting him to come in, throw some bad interceptions, make some bad fumbles, and he actually protected the ball pretty well. And that's with the style of offense they were running, what I was looking for out of a young player. So I was pretty happy with that. So it might just be a little bit of hangover, and Howell didn't have hardly any chance to play much. So yeah.
Well, and you mentioned when we were talking about like some of the backups that you have above him, you said you had Trubisky above him because you weren't that high on Pickett. You have Pickett at 25. I have him at 23. 25 is probably about the lowest I've seen him. We're going to talk about that in a second, actually, because he's the only quarterback that we have different in our entire top 24.
Really?
Is you have Stafford in there and Pickett out, and I have Pickett in there and Stafford out. So that's pretty interesting. So I mean, again, I don't love Pickett, but improved as the year went on. The offense improved as the year went on. Najee, who we'll talk about later, improved as the year went on. I don't know. I just I think he's going to be better than he was last year. I mean, nothing on fire. I only have him a couple spots ahead of you, but you sound like you really don't like Kenny Pickett.
No, not really. And a lot of that's just, I don't know if it's like Steelers fan bases as a whole, because they do it with George Pickens and they make Kenny Pickett seem like, he's a QB1. George Pickens is now better than Deontay Johnson. So I think a lot of it's just a little bit of spite, if I'm being honest, of just all the love I'm seeing. And I just don't, I don't really see it. And I just think, not by a lot, because I have Mr. Trubisky one spot ahead of them. I just think he's a little bit younger, and he might throw more interceptions, but he'll definitely try and get the ball out to his weapons. And I don't know.
Yeah, and he's pretty mobile too, so he's got that going for him. All right, the next one on my list is Cole Kmet. Right, so Cole Kmet's an interesting story for me because he's a tight end that I was high on. Like, I think my first article for Going for Two was pumping up Cole Kmet in Dynasty, and when it came to the number of targets he was going to get in the offense and et cetera, and just he kind of had a shot last year, and we saw the team has low passing volume. We saw Fields is going to use his legs a lot. He only threw for 2,200 yards. And, if he doesn't get good luck with touchdowns, which I guess you could say about a lot of tight ends, he just doesn't seem like the guy, or at least the guy I thought he was, right? And then you throw in that, we've added rookies into the mix, plus as much as, I'm not a huge fan of Robert Tonyan, and he's kind of, still living off that one, explosive year of a few games he had with Rodgers. Tonyan is there. Mooney's returning to the offense. The possible Mooney heir apparent Tyler Scott was added. They have a very good running game, which means that, even if they do expand the passing volume, it's not going to be a whole lot. So Cole Kmet's averaging about tight end 15.67 out in the streets. I have him at 22 between Jelani Woods and Luke Musgrave, and you have him still at 16, staying afloat there. Of course, you're closer to what people seem to think. He's between Laporta and Chig for you. Am I a spurned Kmet lover who is just a woman scorn here and having fury toward my old flame, Cole Kmet? Tell me why I should have him higher.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, honestly. So I watched a lot of Bears game, mainly because I was very invested in Justin Fields, and also I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I wanted Cole Kmet to do well.
Oh, and, well, you're biased too then. Forget it.
A little bit. But I did move him down a lot. I had him going into last year almost, I don't remember exactly, but up there 12, 13. So I had to move him back some realizing the low pass volume. But he did have 7 touchdowns. The yards weren't great, but he had a few big plays. They tried to get him the ball a lot. And watching some of the games, he made some really good catches, made some one-hand catches, a lot of catches contested in traffic. And I think that's just something that he has, and that's something that he's going to continue to be able to use and be able to, exploit over DBs and smaller linebackers, just the ability to go catch the ball and be sure-handed. And I think he's going to be the number 2, which we talked about last episode, Darnell Mooney getting bumped down. I think they're going to try and get him the ball some more. So it's just his overall ability I like.
You have 3 guys below him that I like above him in Chig, Juwan Johnson, and Evan Ingram. I have Evan Ingram, 17. It's not like I have him, 12 or 13. I recognize some of what's going on there with the franchise tag. They draft a tight end with the second round. They've got other weapons like Ridley and Kirk and whatnot. But I'm wondering why you have Chig below him or Juwan Johnson below him when there's just, I don't know, a lot more, I think, ceiling and upside with those guys.
Yeah, the ceiling, this is honestly, Cole Kmet's a floor play when it comes to tight ends, in my opinion. And, it wavers on team build which one I want to go with, because I've drafted Chig over Cole Kmet before, given what I'm trying to do with the team.
Sure. Yeah.
But the thing that hurts Chig the most to me is he plays on just as low of a passing volume team with a worse quarterback than Cole Kmet has.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that's the main thing with him. And Juwan Johnson, I think there's just I really like him. I talked about him being a buy a few episodes ago. But there are a lot of mouth to feeds. When Kamara doesn't get expelled or suspended, whatever, he's going to get a lot of targets. Chris Olave is going to get targets. And I really like Rashid Shaheed a lot. And I think he's going to get some more targets too. So it's just more mouths to feed than I think there is, with Cole Kmet and DJ Moore. So that's the main reasons for those two.
Yeah, Jamie in the chat that he's got Kmet around 20th, which is closer to me, but still higher than Fant, who he's kind of given up on. I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't know about giving up on, but like, what has Noah Fant done to like ride a ranking in tight ends anywhere above like, I don't know.
I have Fant at 28.
I like seriously. Where do I have him?
I don't know. I have
him at 29. Yeah, it's like So we're not big fans of Noah Fant either.
I was 3 or 4 years ago, but
well, a lot of people were, right? Like he was, what was he, the 2016 class, 17 class? Noah Fant? I forget, something like that.
I was doing only redraft then, but.
All right, so one that you pulled here was Cam Akers. Cam Akers' average is about running back 26.22. Josh, you have him at 20 between Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders. I have him down at 27 between Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara. Talk to me about Akers.
Mostly of what Akers is, I was completely out on him last year. I did not draft him in a single draft, except the one going for 2 league I did, and I got last place. So, coincidence. But he looked a lot better throughout the year. And at the end of the year, he looked like he had his explosiveness back. And I think a lot of that is realizing it takes longer time than we expected to get over an Achilles injury, like we've seen with a few other players. And so I think a full other offseason, he's still 23 years old. He doesn't have much competition behind him. I like Zach Evans where he was going, but Cam Akers is going to be the guy to start the year, and I think without injury, he's going to be really good, like we saw, when he first came on and towards the end of the year last year when he had a little bit more burst and explosion. So it's really just his age. I think he's going to be healthy for the first time in a while, and last time he was healthy, he was really good.
Yeah, I'll admit that, he did, improve. And obviously after, the drama was over, performed well. But I look at that I don't think he'll ever have the explosiveness back that he did pre-Achilles injury. I look at the fact that the team, we know doesn't love him. The offensive line isn't great. The quarterback, while competent and I think is somewhat of a buy, there was rumors that he would retire after the year's over. And I don't think I don't think that Zach Evans, even though he's round 6, or Tyon Evans, even though he's a UDFA, are chumps when it comes to competition for touches. With Dalvin Cook. I just think people with Cam Akers. I think people are overvaluing him. I think he was a divisive prospect coming out, and I think if you were on him then, you kind of like want him to do well now, and I think if you weren't, you kind of still aren't, and are looking for that the negative side of that story. According to DTC, he's valued right around the 112, and I've seen him go straight up in a trade here that I pulled from these websites, straight up for the 108 and straight up for Geno. Would you make either of those trades?
Probably not. I don't think I'd really give up a first for it. Maybe if I was really needy and add a bunch of picks, a few extra maybe, but probably not. I like Geno a lot too.
Right. He's as much as Geno's Geno, he's still a starting quarterback in a super flex. But yet you have another trade go down that I pulled where Cam Akers goes for 223 thirds.
Yeah, I do that in a heartbeat.
Right, so I guess it's worth testing the market, seeing what the price is, whether you have him and want to sell him, or whether you don't have him and want to buy him, depending on how you feel about him, because his price definitely seems to vary. I think one of the things that pushes him down for me is that I seem to be bullish on 2 older backs relative to you. I have David Montgomery and Aaron Jones at 19 and 20, and you have them at 28 and 26, right? And I just think that maybe that's a statement on how I feel about Gibbs and Dillon. It's also, I think, a statement on that. I think the offenses want to use both of those backs. So, that definitely pushes him down a few spots for me, and explains some of the seven spot gap that we have we have in our ranks. Yeah.
For sure. I was looking at his last 3 games. He gave him 23 attempts, 118 yards, 19 attempts, 123, and 21 and 104. I don't expect that every game because I'll have Cooper Kupp back and Stafford will be back. But I think it at least hopefully gained a little bit of trust moving into this season.
Okay. You could convince me to put him above Dalvin Cook, who I have above him. You could probably convince me to put him above. Depending on what happens with Mixon, I might have to knock Mixon down. I don't, but I don't know that I'm putting him above, Dameon Pierce, and then 2 guys we'll talk about later, which are Tank and Charbonnet. So, okay, well, maybe I'm a little low. I wanted to be excited about him, but the more I thought about it, and then once they drafted Zach Evans, I was like, I don't know. All right.
Yeah. No, he's definitely polarizing for sure.
All right. Next on, well, speaking of, let's talk about this situation of the Jacksonville and Seattle backfields. This is one that I wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So, Etienne, I have ranked 13th between Dobbins and Walker, and you have Etienne ranked 9th between Walker and Pollard. I have Walker ranked 14th between Etienne and Javonte. You have Walker ranked 8th between Jacobs and Etienne. You are much closer to market on them, as Etienne is averaging 7.22 and Walker 7.11. I have the other backs in the backfield for those teams also ranked above you. I have Tank at running back 23 between Mixon and Charb. I got Charb at 24 between Tank and Dameon Pierce. You have Tank at 37 between Connor and Kendre. You have Charb at 30 between Gibson and Dillon. Their averages are about 42 and 26, Tank and Charb. This really speaks to, I think, how we see what happened with the draft and all the running backs involved pretty differently, right?
Yeah.
For me, Etienne and Walker were two overrated backs that I like reluctantly had in like my top 10 or 12, right? Etienne, you know, proved that he couldn't really, stand up to workhorse level touches, is not the pass catcher that people think he is not the, super efficient runner that people think he is, particularly when it comes to, tough yardage and short yardage. And the guy they drafted with, third round draft capital, Tank Bigsby, is good at football. He's a more well-rounded running back than Travis Etienne. He's not the backup. He's the 1B. He's going to get some pass catching. He's going to get some short yardage. He's going to get some red zone, some high value touches. Etienne's percentage of getting runs in from the 5-yard line or closer was 22%. The NFL average was 39%, right? Now we talk about, a Doug Peterson offense that does like to mix in backs, and they spent the capital on the guy. Etienne's the pick of the old regime. I think people really are underestimating the impact that Tank has on Etienne, or at least, if not the impact that he has on Etienne, because they're playing two different roles. The impact that he should have on rankings and value, and the role that Tank is going to play. And I think very similar conversation when it comes to Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is an overrated running back who, sure, he'll break a 40-yard run, but then he'll get, tackled for a loss. He's a home run hitter. And that's cool. That's good. He's a good running back. I clearly have him ranked, in my top 15. It's not like I hate the guy. And he did, prove to some people that he could catch a little bit more than we thought, but, never really a huge part of the passing game. And does this sound familiar? A second round running back who is, more well-rounded. If you don't want to say better, fine. He's inarguably the more well-rounded running back in Zach Charbonnet. They spend a second-round pick on him. He's gonna get high-value touches. He's gonna get receiving game. He's gonna get short yardage, right? He's gonna get red zone. He's gonna get high-value touches. It's the same thing, right? So the difference in our rankings reflects the difference in how we see the backfields, how we see the secondary backs, how we see things shaking out. Interestingly, though, like I think it's interesting how you're like 7 apart on Charb and Tank. Like I would expect them to be closer. And also, I think it's interesting how out in the streets, people see the Charb situation very differently as far as like his rookie ADP goes. It's like 112. Whereas Tank's rookie ADP is like the late second. Yet the streets don't see Walker and Etienne very, very differently, right? So I'm curious, not only like your opinion on how these backfields shake out, but also like on the gap between Charb and Tank.
Yeah. So looking at this, I meant to have Etienne one above, but it doesn't take anything away from this, except it would explain the discrepancy between Tank and Charb. I think Charbonnet, like you said, Kenneth Walker, for how good he was, outside of the red zone. In the red zone, he had like 10 carries for 3 yards and 1 touchdown. He was negative in EPA, estimated points per attempt, I think but he was not efficient with his carries. He just hit a home run every now and then. So, and I think Charbonnet is, like you said, I don't know if I'm ready to say he's better, but he's more well-rounded. And on PFF, he had a better pass blocking grade already than Kenneth Walker had. So I think he's going to have a little bit more playing time than Tank might. So I think Kenneth Walker does have the better chance out of those two to get bumped down in rankings and lose value. I'm a little bit more higher on ETN, and that's mainly because he was 4th in forced missed tackles last season per attempt with 0.26. So a quarter of the time he was making someone miss, and he averaged over 5 yards a carry, and I think showed better big play ability than Kenneth Walker. he was better at catching the ball in college than he was in the pros. So I think he's going to work on that and get back to catching with his hands and not fighting the ball. Like he's trying to attack the ball with his hands, let it come to him. And I'm just not as high on Tank Bixby. I was pretty high on him in rookie, like early on in the rookie process, but I bumped him back a little after the combine and a few other things. So I just think Charbonnet has a much better chance of coming in and being the 1B as opposed to, more of a 1A/1B than Tank does. And I think ETN's just a little bit better.
All right. Yeah, and and the streets don't disagree with you with that regard, as the way that they are viewing Charb versus Tank. Jamie here saying in the chat that he's still got Etienne at 7 and Walker at 6. Like, listen, I'm gonna say this politely to you and to Jamie and to the Dynasty community. Y'all have lost your minds. All right. These guys were pretenders. They were fake. They were frauds, when they were in the top 8, 10, 12 running backs to begin with. And their teams just spent good draft capital on more well-rounded backs. It's time to sell. It's time to sell.
I'm not ready to say Tank's a more well-rounded back than ETN is yet.
Oh,
that's the one I'm not sold on. I don't think so.
I think it's very clear he's the more well-rounded back. Okay, so Etienne is valued around the 104 according to DTC, and has gone straight up for the 104 and the 107, and for Chris Olave in trades that I pulled. What do you think of those?
I'm not giving anything more than a 105, maybe 106. I'd rather have. Well, I'll do the 105. I don't know. It depends on team build. I really like JSN, and I want to get him. But if you don't need a quarterback, I would do 105 maybe. 104 just seems tough because you can still get a good quarterback with that because you get one of the three.
So as much as I'm lower on Etienne than some folks, there's a trade that went down on May 9th. Nico, the 205 and the 305, I'm still probably keeping Etienne in that regard. But as someone who thinks Etienne, is a screaming sell, he went on the May 14th for Treylon Burks and a 24-second. Like, I might try to squeeze more out of the person just because of the market, but I'm taking Burks and the second there as someone who's looking to sell. But the market loves Etienne. So if you're smart enough to agree with me out there, go see what like you could add a plus to him to get up into like a really high wide receiver, right? Or you could tier down to, a lower running back in the market and get a nice plus. And I think the same goes for Kenneth Walker, right? We see here Kenneth Walker going for DJ Moore and Mac Jones. Kenneth Walker straight up for Javonte. Kenneth Walker for Dobbins and Gibson. I've got Dobbins ranked ahead of him to begin with, so give me that. Walker and a 24 first for Brees doesn't seem like enough for me for Brees, especially since I'm lower on Walker. And strangely, Kenneth Walker straight up for Jordan Love. What do you think of some of those?
Ugh. Kenneth Walker for Jordan Love doesn't make any sense to me, regardless of how you feel about him. Some of those I was okay with. There were so many I kind of forgot now, but most of those were fine. There was one you said that really bothered me, but it just slipped my brain after listening to all of those.
Sorry. So Kenneth Walker for DJ Moore and Mac Jones.
I'll take, unless I don't, if I have a few extra running backs, I would take Moore and Mac Jones side, especially in Superflex.
Kenneth Walker for Dobbins and Antonio Gibson.
Honestly, I'm high on Dobbins too. I'll take Dobbins and Antonio Gibson because I think Antonio Gibson is going to finally get some love this year.
All right. I think with Bieniemy there, I think that makes Gibson a buy. Okay, adding a first to Kenneth Walker for Breece Hall, 24 first.
I'll take Breece Hall.
Yeah,
Brees Hall's my RB too. So
And you're higher on Walker than I am, so I'm
yeah,
taking
no, I
Brees
would.
on that
Yeah,
one.
I would still take Brees. Honestly, I think he's much more dynamic.
Kenneth Walker and Amari Cooper for Chris Olave.
I'll take Walker and Amari Cooper probably, and I like Olave a lot, but I also really like Amari Cooper with Deshaun Watson. So
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm taking the Olave side on that one.
yeah,
That's an example of if you're looking to get out of Walker like I am, put a little plus and boom, gets you into an elite wide receiver. Jamie reminded me that they also spent high draft capital on Walker and Etienne. First of all, the previous regime spent it on Etienne. Like, so I know it's narrative, but it's fact, right? And I'm not denying that. I'm not saying that this turns those guys into zero. I'm saying they were present and their teams still said we're going to spend day 2 draft capital on a high level running back prospects, right? And if we like to say that draft capital determines a lot, right? Like, you can't deny that, that's not great news for either of these incumbent running backs, right? Now, I was lower
yeah.
on them going in to begin with, so maybe like it affects it, but like I don't see how Etienne and Walker are still maintaining their value and their ranking out in the streets when Charb and Tank got drafted. I'm flummoxed by it.
The more thing I'm confused by is why Sharp is going so much more ahead if they have Walker and ETN the same. Like my difference is mainly that I think Sharp will get a lot more playing time because he's more well-rounded than Tank, and I think ETN's better. But the fact that they're the same, but then Tank and Sharp are so far off, that's kind of confusing to me.
Right. Yeah. That really is confusing to me. And what's also confusing to me, is I am now the meme lord. Having if you look on the left there, joking about how high Charb's ADP is versus Tank's, but how I think they're when it comes to what they're going to be, the role they're going to have on the team and the effect they have on the incumbent is the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. Like I just don't get how Charb and Tank can be that far apart in rankings and ADP if Etienne and Walker are so close, and if you're smart enough to agree with me that their role is going to be the same as the more well-rounded back on the team versus the incumbent. I just, I don't understand the gap between Charb's ADP and Tank's ADP.
So,
I know.
So one other point, one reason I do have Kenneth Walker a little higher is kind of like last year when they had Rashad Penny there. It might be different because contract things. Rashad Penny on his last year, but they really didn't play Kenneth Walker much at all until he got hurt. I don't know if it's going to be kind of the same where they just let the rookie still give Kenneth Walker a bulk of the carries and let the rookie ease his way in as the season goes on. But that's just a thought I had and something I wanted to bring up to see how you felt about that.
Repeat it for me.
So last year, Kenneth Walker, I was lower on him because I knew they were just going to funnel Rashad Penny the ball because he's better. Yeah. I wonder if they do the same thing with Kenneth Walker this year, and just let him get the bulk of the carries early on in the season, kind of ease the rookie in.
I mean, they might ease Charb in, but I'm on record as saying I think by the end of the year, Charb could be the 60 out of a 60-40. I think Pete Carroll has his in Walker and Charb has Penny and Carson if Carson could catch passes and if Carson was a little less violent a runner. Like, he's got what he had and he liked it. And I just think we're going to see a much bigger impact on the incumbent running back in both those situations than people think. I am bewildered on how they're retaining their ranking, their ADP, and their value. But interestingly enough, you mentioned Akers before. I see a trade here on May 19th, Tank straight up for Akers.
Yeah, I'll take Akers.
That's weird, right? Like, I mean, I have
that is a funky trade, though. Like,
I have Tank above, right? But like, I know in a lot of places nobody does, so I'm gonna try to get that plus on Tank, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's weird. And Charb straight up for Darren Waller.
I'll take Charb on that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take a young running back over an aging tight end.
Oh man, I don't know, man. Tight end premium, top 10 tight
It
end.
depends. If it's more than half point, maybe, but most ones I'm in are half point. That's not enough to me to
Yeah.
really tilt the
I
scale.
don't know though. Like he's always been a target hog, and like kind of that. At least for now, we have the who else are they throwing to narrative on that team. Like Wandale Robinson, okay, a slot guy with a busted ACL. Who I like him, but like that's what he is. Hodgins, Jalen Hyatt, Bryce Ford
No,
Wheaton,
that's definitely
Jamison
the big.
Crowder,
It's definitely the biggest thing
Darius
he's got going
Slayton.
for him.
Like he's like the wide receiver one on the Giants.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So the next one on your list is. Oh, I'm sorry. Julia has a question for us. Do we both have Brees Hall higher than Walker and Etienne? And I think for me, it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
But for you too, and you're higher on the other guys than I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have Brees Hall at the second running back overall behind Bijan and right before Jonathan Taylor. So even with the injury, if it wasn't for the injury, I'd probably have Brees Hall number one still.
All right. So she also has a question about why I have Tank higher than Charb, even though Charb has the clearer path to be the number two with Pentagon. So for me, I have them tightly packed. I have Tank at 23 and Charb at 24. So they're only one spot apart, and they're in the same tier, right? And so I think for me, doing Tank above Charb at the moment is that I guess, how can I put it? Like, I think Tank's landing spot was, I think, less disappointing for what I thought he was going to be, right? And whereas Charb, I think, took a bigger hit in my head because of the landing spot. Listen, they weren't great landing spots for either of them, right? Because of the guys who were there, right? But I think maybe I'm a little less convinced that Etienne is viable, as a 1A there than I am with Kenneth Walker. Maybe, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, they're right packed together and they're in the same tier, so I don't know that it's that big a deal for me. But certainly, I don't know why it's that big a deal in the streets. Like I just like I don't get it. Right? That to me is an inefficiency that people should be exploiting and go buy Tank. I mean, I've been telling people to draft Tank, anyway because his ADP is so criminally low, but like obviously,
Yeah.
like he's a screaming buy to me in that case. So next one on Josh's list is Chris Godwin, wide receiver 23.44 from the average that I pulled. Josh has him at 22 between Hollywood and Judy. I've got him all the way down at 33 between Christian Kirk and Rashad Bateman. Tell me about Godwin, Josh.
Yeah, so I made a remark earlier how I don't think the Tampa Bay pass offense isn't going to drop that much. Yeah, it will take a step down from Tom Brady. Almost any team would, but I think Chris Godwin is the one who's going to be hurt the least by this, and that's mainly because he's had 4 straight top 15 wide receiver seasons in points per game, which I think is a little bit more important than overall season. I think it tells you more. I've seen reports of them trying to use him more and use him more creatively. He ran 73% of snaps in the slot last year. I think they're going to move him around a little bit more, and I think he's a plenty good enough route runner to be able to make that change. And he had 104 receptions in 15 games, and that's coming off an ACL tear, so I don't even think he was 100%, but he still was able to go get 104 receptions. They threw the ball a lot. I don't think they'll throw as much as they did, but I think he has a much better chance to survive life without Tom Brady than Mike Evans might. So I just think he's good enough to where he's still going to be the guy there, and he's still going to get his. And he's shown to be good at touchdowns too, and not be just yardage.
I mean, I'll buy that he can adapt to Baker's arm in a way that maybe Mike Evans can't. But that's also reflected in my rankings because I've kind of buried Mike Evans in the 40s.
Yeah.
I think for me, Godwin is a guy that I've loved that just has never really been what I thought he could be, right? He just was continually slipping in my rankings. The more other guys were rising, and the more now that I put in the rookies, right? And add into the fact that it's Baker and a putrid offense, and the touchdowns are going to decrease, and he benefited a lot from Tom Brady, and I just can't bring myself to really raise him much at all. But I will say this: we're probably going to do a show on something about wide receivers. But like, I have a tier of wide receivers from, I think, 17 to 26, and then 26 to 37 or something like that. That really, it's a soft tier break. It could really be all one big old tier that is essentially, I don't know, like they're all wide receiver twos, right?
Yeah.
They're all, or high end wide receiver threes, and it's like they could go one way or the other depending on what happens on their offenses, and get the plus for on top of a guy if you can, because they're fairly interchangeable, right? So I mean, I don't necessarily think it's out of the question that 6 weeks into the year, like, my ranking on Godwin's going to look a lot closer to yours. It's just that right now I can't really do that. I mean, I like guys above him, like Dotson and Amari Cooper and Deontay Johnson and Jerry Jeudy, and I just Christian Kirk. I just can't with Baker at quarterback. I just think, and I don't know. I think they're going to be, them in Arizona are really going to be like a dumpster fire this year, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just too doom and gloom on that offense. Godwin valued around the 107 still, though, according to DTC. He's still going in the 7th round, roughly, in startups between Flowers and Terry McLaurin. Godwin and the 105 for the 104. So you're getting out of Gibbs territory into more of a guaranteed quarterback.
If I've got 3 starting quarterbacks, like 2 good ones, and then like Mac Jones or somebody on my bench, I would definitely do that. Trade back, get Godwin, and still be able to get JSN. And you have, according to my rankings, two top 24 wide receivers just for one slot. So I would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. See, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of, like, I don't care what's on my team, that 104 quarterback spot, unless you're in one of these drafts where they're getting too cute and taking Gibbs before a quarterback, which I'm not going to talk about. But, the value of that quarterback spot, like, and you're only going to give me Godwin to get there, forget it, right? At the same time, if I'm in the 105 and I know that I can vault up and get a rookie quarterback, and all I have to add is Godwin, then sure, I'll do it. Godwin straight up for Geno.
I think Geno is a really good quarterback too in Superflex. So I can find, as much as I like Godwin, I can find receivers elsewhere. And I've also boosted up despite rankings, just how highly I value quarterbacks in Superflex, because I got burned pretty bad in some leagues last year where I didn't draft heavily on quarterback.
Godwin, Pittman, and the 107 for Fields.
I think I'll take the 3 picks.
I'm taking
Depends on
Fields.
team build.
I'm taking Fields pretty easily there. I mean, he's an elite quarterback in a super flex. Pittman, I like him, but he's part of that tier of wide receivers who could go either way, and there's a non-zero chance that, Richardson actually hurts Pittman's value at some point. And Godwin attached to Baker, like, you're asking me to give up a quarterback in a super flex who, should be valued around, like, I don't know, 2.5, 3 first round picks, right? And for that, I don't know that I can do that.
Yeah, looking where Addison and Flowers go, I think I'm going to take Justin Fields. For some reason, I was thinking I could get JSN or Gibbs with that pick, but 107, yeah.
Yeah, you're starting to get in that territory where, like, those guys aren't going to slide down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Godwin and a 24-second for Jordan Love.
Godwin and a 24-second.
For Jordan Love.
I'll take Godwin in the second.
I think I might roll the dice on Jordan Love there, and say, listen,
Really?
I'm adding a second on top of a wide receiver that could go either way for a shot at a pretty decent quarterback too in Superflex. Give me the quarterback.
Yeah.
All right. Next one on my list is high-end quarterback two. Speaking of quarterback two, so this is really a Russ versus Daniel Jones debate, right? Russ, who in the streets is averaging quarterback 21.44, and Daniel Jones in the streets is averaging 16.44. Josh has them ranked pretty much like that, with Daniel Jones at 16 between Stroud and Lance, and Russ at 21 between Geno and Mac. I have them slightly flipped. I have Russ at 16 between Young and Stroud, and I have Daniel Jones at 19 between Cousins and Goff. The reason I like Russ better is I think he's got 2 good bounce back years left with Sean Payton incoming and the weapons he has. And whereas Daniel Jones, I could see the case to be made that he should be higher, or at least, in a couple years, it's going to look that way. And he does probably now at this point bring as much or more a rushing component to the game than Russ does. He's attached to Brian Dable, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I think he should. I don't think he deserved the contract that he got. I think he is a mid quarterback. I think he's very mediocre. And now you're asking me to have faith in him when Saquon's future remains uncertain, and they have the stable of whatchamacallits and who's a what's-its at wide receiver that we just talked about. I just can't bring myself to say solidly, that I'm going to take Daniel Jones where he is at cost, where I could take Russ at cost. I just don't think the difference, even if I'm wrong, is really justified there. According to DTC, Jones is being valued right around the 107, with Russ at the 109, and that doesn't sound like much, right? But when you think about, that's Jordan Addison and possibly if Stroud or JSN slide, or you're looking at, Kincaid in a 1.75 or higher, or, Zay Flowers, or, that sort of, like Quentin Johnston, like, that's a difference, right? But, I just don't see how, people can have, him as low as 22, 23, which I'm seeing out in the market. Whereas like pretty much everybody has, it's really weird. Jones is 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 17, 16, 16, 19, 16, right? Like everybody loves him at 16. Tell me why Jones should be above Russ.
So the case for Jones is every year since he's been the starter, they haven't had very many weapons to go to. They had decent receivers, but they're always hurt. And each year he's shown improvement. And that includes last year. He only had 5 interceptions. The 15 touchdowns isn't great, but I think Darren Waller will help with that. Wandell being healthy will definitely help, with the passing game too. But he also showed really good rushing ability that's kind of underrated for him. He doesn't really have too many design runs, but he showed really good ability to be able to, escape the pocket, go up for a run, pick up big first downs. And he was also just really clutch last year. In big games, he showed up. He didn't turn the ball over, didn't make stupid decisions. And I think he's just going to continue to get better. And I think Waller and Wandell are, while it's not great, it's still, I think, better than what he's had, with a healthy Saquon to go. So I like him right there behind Stroud and Bryce Young at 15 and 14.
All right. But you're telling me that's better than Russ with Sean Payton, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims, whatever's left of Courtland Sutton, Greg Dulcich, Adam Troutman, a decent enough running game, probably with P. Ryan and then Javante returning. Like that's worth less than Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I saw yeah, I think so. And the main thing is, I would just rather have the people above Russell Wilson where I have him, because above him I have Geno Smith. He's younger. He's had his best year of his career. I think I'd rather have him. I'd rather have Jared Goff. He's got a lot of weapons now. I'd rather have Kirk Cousins, who has Justin Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson to throw to, and then Trey Lance and Daniel Jones. So I just really could not move him up ahead of any of those guys. Last year, some of it was the system, but he also missed some wide open receivers. Wasn't even looking. He didn't seem to be reading the field. And I think Peyton will help simplify some things, but I don't think he's just going to make Russ better. I think Russ is declining in his career. It didn't look as mobile. The last few games of the year he might have, but he's still getting older and doesn't run near as much as he used to. So I'll just rather have the other guys.
Yeah, he improved toward the end of the year. I think that there's news reports that he was winning the locker room over more and that sort of thing. And I don't know. Okay. Let me put it to you this way: would you trade Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones is going at the 412 in startups. The 412. Right, he's going in between Devontae Adams and Ramondre Stevenson. Right, I'm going to draft him, or I'm going to draft Russ at the 705. Right, between Ayuk and Kincaid. When Dynasty Trade Calculator tells me the only difference between them is the 107 and 109 in rookie drafts.
Yeah, in the drafts like that, I'm taking Ramondre or any of the guys there that's not Daniel Jones. I've drafted him a lot, but I've been able to get him in the 5th and 6th round, and I feel a little bit better about that as opposed to, where you're getting Ramondre, who's potential RB1. So I think 4th round's a little early for me even to get Daniel Jones.
Okay, 2 guys that you like better than I do. Daniel Jones straight up for DJ Moore.
I'll take Daniel Jones. He's 25, 26, improving. So he's a quarterback too. So I'll take Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones straight up for Debo.
Ooh, that's tough. I'll take Daniel Jones. I really like him. He's starting to decline a little, it seems.
Daniel Jones for Jelani Woods in the 111.
Daniel Jones.
Me too, even though I'm lower on Jones than you.
The 111 is not – I do not want to pick there in this year's rookie draft.
Right,
so.
yeah. And I love Jelani, but, let's face it, he's Jelani. He could go either way, right? Here's an interesting one, right? Daniel Jones, Jameson Williams, and a 23 first for Justin Herbert. I'm still taking Herbert.
Yeah. No, I really like Justin Herbert. He's literally setting NFL records for how young he is and how good he's doing. So I mean,
that's like the 105 in startups. He's like an elite super flex quarterback. Yeah, that's just not enough for me.
Yep. I love Justin Herbert. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks.
Russ or the 110?
I'll take Russ. After the 108, 109, I'm not interested in those picks right there, honestly. So.
Here's a fun one for you. Russ plus the 101 plus the 202 for Mahomes. I'm taking Mahomes. You can't.
Is the only thing that tempted me on that. But even
right?
then,
Mahomes
is consensus best quarterback I've seen play in a while.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't. I mean, because if you go by Russ's value, you're essentially giving the 109, the 101, and the 202 for Patrick Mahomes. And if someone offered you that, you'd be like, go kick rocks, right?
Yeah.
So it's just I don't know. It's not a huge difference that I have between the two quarterbacks, but I think it's something that I'm pretty convicted about. And by the way, it's not just that they're 16 and 19 because like those are numbers and we have to put them in some order. Like, I use tiers as well. And like for me, Russ is towards the end of a tier of 13 through 17, and Jones is that next tier down of he's 19 and 18 to 21. He's in there with Cousins and Goff and Derek Carr, and I've got Russ in there with Tua, Lance, Bryce, and Stroud.
That's interesting because my tier starts at Daniel Jones, and I tiered it that way to where anyone above Daniel Jones is quarterback one potential. I'll be comfortable with them as my first quarterback. Anything below that, so the ones I listed earlier, I'm comfortable with those as my second quarterback. If they're my first quarterback, I'm definitely going to be trying to get an early rookie pick or something. But that's kind of how I did mine. And Russ is still in that tier, and it goes all the way down to Sam Howell. I cut it off at Jimmy G and Aaron Rodgers. So,
okay. Julia telling us that Danny Dimes, or Vanilla Vic as he is called, was
I love that one.
QB5 in the last 7 games of the year. All right, so maybe Brian's wrong. It happens every once in a while.
I'm going after backs that don't fully rely on rushing to get points. It's an extra add-on bonus because he's smart. He doesn't get hit. He slides, and that's just extra points. So.
Yeah, it's like you want that rushing quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a point at which in their career where you're going to want that other guy now more later. Yeah, like we'll probably do a show on Fields versus Lawrence or something like that, And I've caved and I put Fields ahead of Lawrence. But I think in 3 years I'm going to have Lawrence ahead of Fields.
I'd be interested in that because I had Lawrence just ahead, and that one was really tough for me figuring out which one to put ahead of those.
Yeah. All right, we've each got one left on the list. Josh, to you, Rashad Penny, who I like, and it hurts me to have him ranked at 45 between Samaje Perine and Damian Harris, but I'm closer to the community on this one, which I've been off consensus a lot tonight. He's 47.11 in the streets. You have him at 35, and again, once you get past like whatever, running back 26, 28, like the differences are, don't really mean as much. But you've got him, at 35 between Pacheco and Connor. I want to put Penny higher, and I just can't. Tell me why I should.
All right. So first of all, I should preface this that as a kid would say, I'm a Rashad Penny stan.
Okay.
I love Rashad Penny, and when he's healthy, I think he's amazing. Yeah, it hurts to see me have him behind Pacheco, but I kind of had to do it. I couldn't really put him up too much higher. But when Rashad Penny is healthy, he is absolutely elite in yards after contact. He led the league by a wide margin. I have a chart up here. Nobody else can see it. But he averaged over 4 yards after contact, and the next closest is Ramondre, under 3.8. So that's just something you can't really teach. He's a really, really good running back. He's just marred by the weirdest injuries. None of them are reoccurring, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but he always has a major injury. That's literally the only thing from keeping him being an RB1, top 12, even with Swift there. He averages almost 6 yards a carry in his career, and this is by far the best O-line he's ever had, and I think the best offensive line in the NFL. And they run the ball enough, and they have other backs where I think they won't have to run him 18 times a game like the Seahawks chose to. I think he can get 10 to 14 yards or carries a game, and with his ability, that's a home run every time he catches the ball, home run potential. He'll get his yards, he'll get his touchdowns, and I don't think he'll have to be the bell cow, which I think is just going to help keep him healthy for the season. Having Swift, having Gainwell, even maybe Boston Scott. I don't know if he's still there, but
yeah, he is. Yeah,
with a good line.
So is Trey Sermon and the ghost of Kennedy Brooks.
Yep. Those mean that I know who they are, but they mean absolutely nothing to me anymore. Which me and one of my good friends, I'll tell a story another time. We got into an argument over Trey Sermon once because he told me he wanted to draft him. I drafted him before he could. Yeah. And I dropped him midway through the year. But, yeah, I just really like Rashad Penny. I'm hoping the Eagles' philosophy with Hurts, all the other running backs, he's not going to have to run enough to where his body wears down and he can stay fresh. And he's with his ability, he's still going to be really good.
Yeah, like I said, I like Penny, and I agree with you. Very, very good runner, very efficient with his touches, and good at the yards after contact. Um, I had him as high as like the mid 30s at one point, and I think it's just a matter of once we put in the rookies and once they added Swift, even though Swift isn't the same type of running back, so they're not going to eat into each other's touches. But you know, the team they love Boston Scott. He's like,
Yep.
and I just Jamie brings up a good point that rushing quarterbacks do help running backs efficiency, but we saw Sanders there do well, and that bodes well for Penny. But we also saw Sanders not do as well as we thought he should, and like he had a very quiet, like 1,200 yards or whatever last year, and I don't think that Penny is really Sanders. He might be like a more electric player, but I don't know that he's like as well rounded as Sanders is, and
He's
I don't know.
better.
I just don't see the path there for like you say, okay, like they're gonna cap, he's not the bell cow, he's not the workhorse, and that's gonna keep him healthy, but like that also puts a cap on what he can do, and when you're asking me to rank running backs in that range, and I add in the fact that like nobody's injury prone, but there is a history there, and his big games at the end of the 2021 season, if you look, came against some awful teams. Like, all right, so should I have Rashad Penny above Jamal Williams?
Yes, because I almost like Kendra more than Jamal Williams, and I haven't heard anything out of Kamara, so I'm just assuming he's not going to get suspended. So yeah,
I mean, I have Kendra and Kamara above Jamal Williams, just for certain reasons. But like, there's a path to Jamal
well,
Williams be having a,
here's
a sizable role on that team, and he can catch a pass or two like he did with the Packers.
yeah,
Like, and he's
here's a
pretty good with his touches too. So like, to me there's more of a role I think in the next 2 years for Jamal Williams than there is for Rashad Penny. But I mean, they're in the same tier, right? So like, yeah.
yeah, and
Um,
that the cap on that is part of the reason I put him at 35. The yards after contact with the Seahawks, I watched a lot of the games. He was breaking tackles from D linemen, linebackers. If he gets good blocking and Kelsey and other guys can get to the second level, he's definitely running through arm tackles from DB. So I definitely also have to bake in the fact that he's behind a really good offensive line. So
Okay.
that
No,
also
that's very true. Very good O line in Philly. Should I have Penny above? You're gonna love this one. Tyjae Spears.
yeah. Tajay Spears has, even though he hasn't played in the NFL, I think he has just as much injury concern as Rashad Penny does.
I can't get with that. I can't get with that. I think he's younger. He's more well rounded. Like, should I have Jamie? Hold on to your seat. Should I have Rashad Penny above Roshan Johnson?
Ooh, let me actually see where I have Roshan because I was higher on Roshan before I answer this. No, you shouldn't. I have Penny ahead of Roshan.
So I should have Penny ahead of Roshan.
Yeah, you should. You should. Yeah.
Okay, so these are all guys that are in the same tier with Penny that I have above. I have above Penny, including somebody that Julia asked a question about a little while back. You're the Falcons fan, Algier. I have him at the top of this tier of 38 to 46 at 38. I think he's a premier handcuff to have. I think he will have some role on the team. They're going to run the ball a lot, so it's not like he's going to go from 1,000 yards to like go be the water boy. But Bijan's Bijan, right? So
Yeah.
he's a Bijan injury away from being a running back that you want. I have him at 38 right about now. Where do you have Algier?
I have Algier at 38. Actually, I bumped him down a good bit, but I have Penny ahead of him. But yeah, I have him right behind Tank actually.
So why Penny ahead of Algier when Algier is a Bijan Robinson twisted ankle away from a big role, and we've seen Algier break 1,000 yards in his rookie year and catch a surprising number of passes.
I think it's just me really liking Rashad Penny's upside behind that offensive
Yeah.
line. I might be overestimating that because the Falcons have not had a good offensive line since I can remember. Which made Algiers year more impressive, but I think Rashad Penny when behind that line is just going to be he's going to be better.
Julia reminded me that Jamal Williams is not the number one. I didn't say he's the number one running back. That the path is there, assuming that Kamara gets suspended for 6 to 8 games, and then what's left, it's him and Kendre. He's the 1A or the 1B there while Kamara is gone. That's what I meant. My bad. Jamie, what have you done? You still have Penny Jamie. Above Roshan? Oh,
you can be both a Penny and a Roshan guy.
It's not about agreeing with me. It's about staying on his brand. What are you doing? Oh, man. What are you doing? Although, like I said, I do have them. I do have them in the same tier. Maybe I'm a little low on Penny. All right, and the last one that I'm going to talk about tonight is 2021 running backs. Big boys. Najee, Ramondre, and Javonte. So the way this shakes out is largely explained by the fact that, you're keeping Walker and Etienne up, and I'm bumping them down, right? So I think it, shifts one over the other. But I wanted to talk about the outlook for these running backs, and particularly why you have Javonte above the other two, right? So Najee, I have him at 7 between Jacobs and Eckler. I have Ramondre at 9, Eckler, Ramondre, tier break, Pollard. I have Javonte at 15, Walker, tier break, Javonte, Swift. Josh has Najee at 16 between Dobbins and Chubb. Ramondre at 14 between Gibbs and Dobbins. Javonte at 12 between Swift and Gibbs. The streets agree with Josh a lot more. They have Najee 11.78, Ramondre at 12.78, and Javonte at 14.56. So they agree with me a little bit more on Javonte being lower, but they agree with you a little bit more on Najee and Ramondre. It doesn't feel comfortable for me to put Najee and Ramondre that high. But when you have conviction like I do in bumping down Etienne and Walker, that's what you're left with, right? And so I'm looking at my running back ranks and my tiers, right? And so I got John J.P. Tall in tier 1, CMC and Saquon in tier 2, and then a tier of Jacobs, Najee, Eckler, and Ramondre. Once you get past Barkley, I kind of don't really want to rely much on my running backs 6 through 9. They don't feel like running backs I want to have at 6 through 9, but I can't justify putting them any higher for sure. And I can't justify putting guys below them, above them, like some people do in Pollard and Gibbs and Etienne and Kenneth Walker. Najee played better toward the end of the year as he was moving forward from Liz Frank. They've improved the O-line. The overall offense got better. Pickett got better. I think things are looking good for Najee. Don't get me wrong, right? He was an older rookie. He's inefficient. He's relying on volume. He's kind of gross, right? But he's a 3-down back in an offense that's going to use him a lot, which the same can kind of be said for Ramondre. Ramondre has been a lover of mine. I've been a big Ramondre guy since before the NFL draft that year. I said Ramondre was a sell. I kind of still think he is. I was able to get a 24 first and a sprinkle for Ramondre in a couple places. But when the dust settled after the NFL draft, he was left standing, right? With really only Pierre Strong as a complimentary back there. I don't know that Kevin Harris and James Robinson are really gonna eat into his 2-down touches. Now it remains to be seen, how big a role the running backs have in the Bill O'Brien offense this year. And certainly they might not be so reliant on the ground game as they were. But, I don't know. I just can't put other guys above him that are below him. And Javonte, I love Javonte. He was my RB3 in that class, above Ramondre. But the fact remains that his knee injury was much more complex than a guy like Breece Hall's was, right? And we have mixed reports about how he's going to be coming back, right? The team went out and got P. Ryan and told P. Ryan, we're not just getting you because Javonte Williams isn't here, we're getting you because we like to use multiple backs, which Peyton does, and he did when he was in New Orleans when he could, when he had the quality guys there. And P. Ryan is a quality guy. While he might be, 27 or 28, he has a 3-down skill set, right? And filled in well, very admirably for Mixon when Mixon was hurt. So I've got Javonte starting that next tier below Pollard, Gibbs, Dobbins, Etienne, Walker, tier break, Javonte Williams, Swift, Derrick Henry, Chubb. I want to shoot Javonte up all the way into that tier with Jacobs, Najee, Eckler, and Ramondre. I want him there. And he may end up there soon. But as of now, I just can't put him up there. So does anything besides the fact that we have Etienne and Walker so different explain the gap between us on Najee and Ramondre, and also why Javonte above those two?
Yeah, so one of the two differences I noticed is I have Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift at 10 and 11. So that's just 2 extra people with Kenneth Walker and ETN that I have above them, because I have Josh Jacobs at 7, Eckler at 6. I saw Javonte ahead because I'm not a fan of the way, for fantasy, the way New England uses their backs. I like Kevin Harris a good bit. I just think Javonte after this year is going, hopefully, if Sean Payton stays, going to be, one of the main runners there and not just be forced into a committee. I'm not as high on him this year. I probably won't have him in any redraft leagues or anything, but that's just me trying to, play the long con and just hoping 2 to 3 years he's back to being that guy that we saw coming out of college. And given his age, if he doesn't re-injure himself, he'll be, a top 5 back. So Ramondre, it's just system, other backs there. I really like him. I just like, the dynamic ability that Gibbs brings, passing and running, and J.K. Dobbins right behind him. I do have a question to trade, since it kind of bakes into talking about quarterbacks. It's this Najee one I put in the Discord earlier.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's Najee Harris and Jordan Love for Rachaad White and a 24 first. Projected to be late because it'll be mine. This needs context. I have Josh Allen and Kyler. So right now I have Baker in my QB2 spot while Kyler's hurt. So that would give me Jordan Love to put.
I think no matter what your roster was, I'm smashing the Najee side, right? You Najee see, I'm higher on Najee than you are and the streets are. I'm lower on White than you are and the streets are. The 24 first is late, and Jordan Love is, a low-cost ticket into who's to say that in 4, 5, 6 months, Jordan Love isn't in our QB 13, 14, 15 conversation. Lance is out of there. Maybe the rookies are struggling, but even then, some of the older guys drop, like Dak or Tua. Right? Who's to say that's not going to happen, right? Listen, I'm not saying I love Jordan Love, pardon the pun. I'm saying the quarterback situation in the NFL is pretty bad, and we don't have a whole lot of proof that Jordan Love is bad at football, right? He had a real stinker start at one point, but then he really, he looked pretty good in the limited action he had filling in for Rodgers last year. The team loves him. They say he's taking a step forward. They're building the offense around him. They're going to plug him in. He's going to, to that easy to understand, maybe not easy to understand, because of the verbiage in the offense, but easy to the quarterbacks just have to make, quick throws and be button pushers for a West Coast type Shanahan type offense, right? And they got pass catchers, they got offensive I think they're setting them up to do well. Who's to say that Jordan Love isn't, a solid QB2 in the Superflex at some point,
I mean, he looked like he had pretty good connection with Christian Watson too, so that was a good thing. When he played, they looked like they were in pretty good sync there.
I mean, I'm smashing that Najee side.
Yeah, just accepted it. So I have my first share of Najee Harris.
Good for you, and just don't come knocking if I'm ever wrong on that. But all right, so
it'll be your fault.
Let's see. Najee for AJ Dillon in the 202.
I'll take Najee.
Najee for Javonte and Deontay. That's a little tougher.
Yeah, I really like Deontay Johnson. I'll take that side.
Najee straight up for Christian Watson.
I'll take Christian Watson.
As much as I like Watson, he's my wide receiver 20, and I think he's got big upside. Could really, get up there with some of the elite names that we talk about. There's also, I think, as much a chance that he could, he's in that tier wide receivers. Like, who the hell knows? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I think I'd take the bell cow back there. Let's see. Najee plus Geno plus Kirk. Christian Kirk.
Okay.
For Fields.
I'll take Fields.
For sure. We've seen a couple trades out there where people are giving away Fields and Mahomes and Herbert for not much. Ramondre for Stephon Diggs.
Well, I'll still take Stephon Diggs.
I think I'd probably do that too, because of the positional thing. Yeah, I think I might do that. Right. Here's a fun one for you. On May 11th, Ramondre plus Mike Evans plus Evan Engram for CMC.
Ramondre, Mike Evans, and what?
Evan Engram for Christian McCaffrey.
I'll take Christian McCaffrey.
I think so too. Yeah. Javonte plus Ridley for Jonathan Taylor.
I'll take Jonathan Taylor.
Javonte plus a 24 first for Travis Kelce.
I'll take Javonte in the first.
Is it the age thing with Kelce?
Yep. That's all it is.
I just think you could probably get more than a future first, and will he start the year with the knee running back for like the tight end 3?
I think you could definitely get more, but I think I'd still lean that side just for youth.
When it comes to startups, the streets have these guys real close. Najee at the 410, Ramondre at the 501, and Javonte at the 505, right? So there's no at cost, blah 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 blah, right? Because their costs are so similar. So it just comes down to who you like better. And if you're telling me that I can get my running back 7 at the 410, when my running back 15 is going at the 505, then yeah, I'll take my running back.
Yeah.
At the 410. All right. So I think that just about does it for the lists that we wanted to talk about tonight. Any minds changed, Josh? Anything that you might do, bump a guy up or down based on our conversations tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna bump Rashad Penny up a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm gonna look more into Tank Bixby, and I might move him up just a little bit. And honestly, thinking about it, I could probably move Kenneth Walker down some, just because I'm so high on some of these other guys like Pollard. I still like ETN a lot, Josh Jacobs. So yeah, I might have to move Walker down a little bit.
I might be convinced to nudge Akers up a little bit from where I have him, and Penny up from where I have him. I'm standing my ground on Etienne, Walker, and Russ, and Tank and Charb. But yeah, no, I think you made a good case for Akers and Penny for sure. God, I really want Javonte to come out and bowl.
Where Rashad Penny's going, he's technically goes straight to my bench based on the draft. So I'm definitely able to. I feel good about doing that, even like a late flex play if you've got some quarterbacks.
I mean, you bring up an important point, right? Because he's going at the 1501 between Romeo Doubs and Keyshawn Butte. So,
yeah.
he's
I'll
like,
take a shot. Yeah, if he
and
gets hurt,
that's as the RB 49, even lower than I have him. Like, give me him over those two guys any
yeah,
day, right? That's when you're
exactly.
pounding those running backs that aren't injury away or whatever, or even might have standalone value. Yeah.
I was drafting him there even when he wasn't on the Eagles, so now I'm just smashing it even more.
All right. Well, we're venturing into, I don't know, hour 45 territory at this point, which I don't know if we're allowed to do. Sorry, Jeff. So let's land the plane
We're
on
gonna
this
get
one.
fired.
All right. So please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on the audio feed. Please make sure if you're watching here on YouTube, either now or later, that you like the video, leave some comments, and of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're going to pull our logo design content in the name of not liking unpaid labor, even though you're looking at us do it right now. And time for plugs. Josh, where can you find your work?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Rotonaut, ROTONAUT. I'm sometimes in our Going for Two Discord, which everyone should join, especially with Scott Fishbowl going around. And I was going to take this second just to say if you haven't, tried to get in, you should, and get to charity. It's for a good cause. It's a fun, big tournament to do. So that's invites are starting to go out. So be sure to do that and donate to a charity.
Absolutely.
But do research about which charity. Don't just,
For sure. And let's see. You can find me, of course, at ffjunkie_ on Twitter. On this show on Saturday nights, goingfor2.com with articles and rankings. In June, I'm going to do like a 4-part series on Dynasty running backs. Sort of like what it used to be like, what happened, what it's like now. And then, going to be trying to do a little more writing maybe in the summer. We'll see. I've also caught on with RPOfootball.com. I'm going to be doing some videos, I think, for them and some short articles as well. Going to maybe start on a couple of those videos next week. And of course, Dynasty Fever podcast at Dynasty Fever Pod, which we record on Wednesdays. Audio only comes out on Thursdays. As Josh said, go to goingfor2.com for all your fantasy needs, articles and stuff about everything fantasy related. And then in the bottom right, there's that little purple Discord thingy, and you click on that. We got hella channels, lots of conversations, arguing about trades, watching Jamie steal players from the toddlers that he plays with in his sleeper leagues.
it's probably his 3-year-old.
Oh, geez. Some of the trades that people are giving Jamie, like, come on.
Hey, Jamie just became a co-manager with me on the Orphan, so I'm hoping to get some of that karma.
Oh, yeah.
We got a lot of picks and a good roster. So.
Maybe that magic pixie dust will get there, and be prepared to get a lot of Roshan. And of course, as Josh mentioned, we are like the place to be in that Discord for Scott Fishbowl mocks, and there's like a channel for every draft slot and that sort of thing. Yep. So make sure you do that. But for now, as usual, thanks for being with us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Go Irish. Go Braves.